Hi! This is a bit of a different video. I just wanted to show you this WAD I made back in 2017, which is a bit more than 6 years ago at this point. I worked quite hard on it at the time and I was really proud of it, but eventually I just lost interest for whatever reason and decided to just put it on a hard drive, and then I forgot about it until like a week or so ago, which is why I wanted to talk about it a bit, because I think it's interesting to see how I made WADs back in the day and what techniques I used or didn't use rather, and even how this WAD might bear a certain resemblance to some other WADs that are, more popular in the scene. But I'm going to explain everything as I go along. For now, I'm just going to point out this very first room that you start in. As you can see, it's a bedroom, which you might notice bears a striking resemblance to the bedroom of my moving WAD, which is purely coincidental. That was not an inspiration whatsoever. I think I just really liked the combination of these wall textures and the wood ceiling and even this type of floor. The curtains being red and the bed sheets being blue, that's purely coincidental, and that was not in any way inspired. Anyway, you start out at this desk, and you might not be able to see it well, but there's some beer bottles, a lot of beer bottles, and something which is meant to be a ring, a wedding ring. Keep that in mind for later. There's nothing else in the room, you can't really do anything, there's nothing on the window, and there's only a door here, which when you open it, you just see a brick wall, and that's about it. So you can't even get past that, you need a red skull for that. The only other thing in the room is this light switch, which, unsurprisingly turns off the light. Except for the door and the light switch, because I don't think I had quite figured out how to make it so everything turns dark at this point. But you might also notice that this painting on the wall also stays brightly lit. So when you jump on the table and crouch, you can actually open it. And it reveals this long dark hallway, which was, I think, inspired by Silent Hill 4, because you also travel to the nightmare world through a hole in the wall like this one. Anyway, when you get inside this hole, because there's nothing else to do, you eventually reach the darkness, but you can turn to the side, and there's an opening into another room. This one is almost definitely inspired by the museum part of the Stanley Parable, because I really like museums and I always wanted to do something like that in my own games, and this was an attempt at that. There's some health bonuses on these pillars here, and aside from that there's nothing else except for the stairwell, which doesn't seem to go anywhere, and this switch in the middle of the room. When I activate the switch, the ceiling raises. Now, you might also notice, well, probably not at the time because it's not out yet, but I recently made a WAD for a community project where one of the parts of the levels also has a raising ceiling to reveal more monsters. I guess that idea has always been on my mind, and I just always wanted to put it in my levels and never, could never fully do it until that WAD I made for the contest. But it's interesting to see that I had this almost 6 years ago as well. Anyway, you eventually realize that you have to jump here because, you can't get up otherwise. And I think this was me trying to do a sort of tutorial on, jumping up to other places. I think I might have even placed the armor bonus up there so you know that you can get there. But that's about it. Then you come to this part, and this is again teaching you that you have to jump, otherwise you just fall down and can't get back up there. There's another switch here, which of course raises the ceiling some more and reveals some platforms that you can jump on. These are some trickier jumps, just ranking up the difficulty a bit so the player can adjust. Some more enemies here, just as cannon fodder, and one more switch, which reveals the last enemies, I believe, and a way out. Right now it's nothing special, it's also very uninspired with the grey walls, but I think that was the point, just making it like really unnaturally boring, even kind of dreamlike, because no place looks exactly like this in real life. So I kinda like that. And there's the exit sign, and that ends the level, of course, so no, of course not, it doesn't. It actually brings you to a next part, and this is where the dream logic increases, because these types of things are going to happen more often, that the scenery just changes out of the blue like that. And there's a shotgun here, which you can pick up, of course. There's a grate there in the wall, and a door here, which you can't open because it needs a red key that we also don't have. If we go back though, where did it go? Where did the entrance go? That was something I was really proud of. It just lowers the wall instantly, which actually, that's a really interesting piece of trivia. This part, this entire section, I completely copied and pasted and used it in my Stanley Parable parody, Stelvan's Parable. The Stelvan Parable, sorry. And this entire section was just taken almost, one-to-one. I put some boxes here on the sides, but I think even in that WAD, when you go over a certain trigger in this exact hallway, the entrance to the room disappears. I'm not sure, I haven't checked it, but I think if I copied it one-to-one, then that should be the case. Anyway, you come in here, there's some more monsters, and it wasn't this time. I think I was really into the idea of just like having dark factory or industrial style levels, which are always fascinated me. I genuinely love just like the boring factory levels in video games. It's just, we had some factories around where I lived, and I always liked going there with my dad, so I think that's what inspired it. And there's really nothing to these levels. I don't think, you can't even get out up here. There's nothing here, even though you can jump up there. It's just what was on my mind. This portion, this is also interesting. These imps moving up and down on these platforms, that was also something I wanted to put in that Doom WAD that I talked about earlier, but I decided against it because that was made in the Doom format, and that has platforms that move up and down, but they're a bit annoying and don't really move up and down this fast, so I decided against it. But again, an idea that I had, for 6 years and never really capitalized on. This is the first time you get the red key, which doesn't actually do anything, I'm afraid, because this map isn't finished. I think that's the only key you ever collect, and it doesn't do you much. You can't really go back to through the door at the beginning. You can, however, go back here. There's some more enemies here. Very Doom 2 inspired. Reminds me a lot of the Crusher part, where when you come back from the Crusher, you get ambushed by a couple of enemies. I think that also inspired this part of the map, actually. There's a very distinct lack of ammo and health items, I noticed. I've gotten a bit better at that ever since I remade that Suburbs level and my most recent WAD. And you might also notice that the entrance is gone yet again, so you can't even go through the red door that was here previously. You may notice also that the lighting is very primitive, but I tried to make it smoother by making certain sectors not quite as dark as other ones, but it still looks a bit, I don't want to say bad, but very basic. Very, very Baby's First Doom mod. Baby's First Doom mod where they tried a bit harder, I guess. This section, I really like this one, because people always say that platforming sections in FPS games are awful, and I don't think I can agree. I really like doing platforming in FPS games. I think that came from TF2, because if it's done well, it can be really nice. But the problem is that games like Half-Life don't ever really do that. They just place these like small platforms everywhere that you have to jump on with pinpoint precision. But what I did here, I put these, what do you call them? These railings on the side so the player wouldn't fall off. So even though the platform is small, you're not at the risk of directly falling off. So the struggle, or the difficulty comes more from trying to balance on these moving platforms. But you're not going to just fall off because you overshot the jump or anything, which is, I want to say, is very nice. And then you come to this sort of vent, you drop down, and brings you back here where you were previously. All the entrances are gone. Even the original one, well, that was the original one. Even this one is completely lowered down. And that was the grate you came out of. And then you open this red door, and it brings you to just a regular room with a bookshelf, which is kind of weird and pointless, really. I mean, what does it do in the factory? There's a switch on the other side, which you can't really press. Like, nothing happens. It just gets jerked around a bit. But you may notice that the scenery changed again. And I know that's not a very clean teleport. I could have done that a lot better at the time. I think there's literally just a teleport here, and it's a silent teleport, so you immediately get placed here. Which is a bit weird when you come from this angle, or even just don't stand at the exact distance. But that was what I did at the time. And it was a cool effect for me, just being teleported instantly without, the player noticing it, because there's no effect. And then you come to this old, mossy brick building, which I think was meant to be a palace or temple a la Zelda. And I used to make these temples a lot back in the day. I really like the green marble textures. They are just gorgeous. I really like them, and I'm also a huge fan of just abandoned temples, like in Minecraft, for instance. So I just wanted to do that in my own Doom WAD, but this isn't the first time I did it. There was another WAD I made years earlier that I never finished, unfortunately. It was sort of a time travel WAD. You started in a scientific space station, and you go through portals, which bring you to these different locations. And the first location was exactly like this one. It looked basically exactly like this. And that one too, much like this one, had the gimmick of being able to climb up and down vines. Now you maybe notice that I'm a very big idiot when it comes to, well, I was a very big idiot when it comes to Doom modding. Also the door's gone again. But I managed to make it so you can climb up and down vines. It's quite impressive. How was I able to do that? Well, it might become more obvious when I shoot in this sector. Yeah, you're underwater. This whole section here is underwater, and if I stay in here for too long, I'm going to start drowning. I was still impressed with it, and I always wish that I could figure out how to make it so you don't drown, because you can, and how to prevent you from doing this, because you can float up to the ceiling even here, which is kind of weird. But I was still impressed that I figured out how to do that, because there is a better way of doing it. It's a different command entirely, but I decided, hey, why not use water? I mean, you can swim in water, so why not swim up the walls? Also, I like this. This is really, this is one of my biggest, how do you say it? That was one of the things I really like to do the most, just battle damage. Not even battle damage, just like broken parts of the level. Just bricks that are falling apart and ceilings that have caved, and I always like doing that. It's just detail. You can climb up this one. There is a section down here, and I believe in the original this just killed you, which is why I put some items there to indicate that, yeah, even if you fall, you're not going to die instantly. Even though that originally did, because you learned how to climb up vines, so now it's a bit harder, and you have to figure out how to get over there in one piece without falling down. But it was a bit too mean, so I changed it. These are some of the only health items you find. Also lost souls. I don't know why I keep putting them in my games. I don't even like them, but I kind of feel like, they gotta be in a Doom board, otherwise it's not a Doom board, but also I like the design of this part of the level, because it's just symmetrical, looks nice, as if you're like walking up the stairs to the important palace. And then you press the switch and it raises a bridge. Again, I'm really proud of this one, well, I was at the time, because it's a way of connecting rooms that aren't immediately obvious. Via ways that aren't immediately obvious, because you just come in here and there's no way to get up here, so you have to raise a bridge. It's simple, but it works. And this room also, I think I've spent a long time on this, I believe. At least it looks like that, because you can see the ceiling is falling apart, there's chunks missing, there's these beams up in the ceiling, and it just looks really, really nice. I think that's probably one of the best rooms I've designed, even though it's lacking a lot of detail, but slap some like torches here and there, some hanging corpses, maybe a bit more, you know, broken bricks and such. That would look really good. Now this is the big centerpiece of this part of the map. Previously we had the conveyor belt section, the factory, and here it's basically the museum part again, but this time it's a lot bigger and has more enemies. So it's just testing you on everything you've learned by now. You've learned how to jump, and you've learned how to climb vines, and now you have to do both. The reverb effect. It's so weird, but I don't know. I think that was a reason why I stopped doing this, also because you can just climb to the top of the map even though it's completely pointless. Because I couldn't get it right. Okay, what the hell, huh? I'm sorry? Okay, I do not remember putting that guy there. Okay, I played this map a few days ago just to, you know, familiarize myself with it. I don't remember this guy at all. I don't remember putting him there. Can you kill him? No, you can't. Can you kill him from here? I don't even know what like the game plan was there. Was it just like to insinuate that you're being watched or something? Is that you? Is that like a past or future version of you? I don't get it. I genuinely don't remember that. That's actually it's kind of creepy, to be honest, because he's just poking his head in, but he's not doing anything. That's really weird. Well, that's where you can cheat. And then you come out here, and it's basically the same as before, but this time you're in a giant hole. I love this. I love this setting so much. I know my map has been very vertical at this point, because I just made whatever came to mind as I was making these. But I really like verticality in maps sometimes, and I think this is a good showcase of how to do that. It even has the conveyor belts again, by the way. You can get pushed off here, so it's a bit more difficult than the other ones. And in my most recent WAD that I made for the contest, project, sorry, there's also a section where you have to climb up vertically in a level. And I think that's really just something that I've been meaning to do for a long time. But I feel like this is honestly where I did it the best. I feel if I had opened the walls at some points and Cat could even support out, I think it would have been even better. But this is really not bad. I mean, for the time, I wasn't completely a noob anymore, but this is still very impressive for what I was able to do at the time. And then finally you get up this small, I guess, sewer pipe, and you end up in a massive desert. I love deserts, by the way. Deserts are one of my favorite settings in any piece of media, even in real life. Mostly because of Team Fortress 2, but I just love how just gigantic they are and endless, and there's just nothing there. And I just love that so much. You're completely by yourself. And so I had to put it in here. And this is, I think it's meant to be a mix between a diner and a gas station. And now you can see why I mentioned those certain other WADs, because this is, okay, it's a coincidence, and I'm not gonna say it was inspired by my WAD. I mean, how would it be? But it is very similar to what MyHouse.WAD does eventually, that it puts you in a gas station. And I guess I also like gas stations at the time. And I just wanted to put that in my level. And I guess I'm not the only person that thought that way, so, you know, what's his name? Veg did the same thing. But I wanted to put mine in the desert. I think I also wanted to make a Doom WAD where you are in a desert and you have to protect it from monsters that pour in. There was a really, like, poor Serious Sam clone on Steam back in the day. I think that came out around the same time I made this video. Stephanie Sterling made a video on it at the time, and I liked the concept. I didn't like the game itself, but the concept I liked. So I wanted to do that here. And there's also transparent windows. I was very proud of myself for figuring out how to do transparency. that was something I always wanted to put in my level. Same as the mirror line. I love putting mirrors in my levels. But inside there's nothing really. You can tell that the level is even difficult. It's like, it's basically a first level in a WAD. It just kind of ramps up in difficulty. And you may also notice that the level is called linear, by the way, because the whole thing was just an exercise in trying to see if I could make a linear level, which I was evidently able to do. But it never really goes further than this. Like, this is, well, I can spoil it right away. You come into this room in the kitchen, I guess this is meant to be, but that's why there were health items. You come into this room, there's a wall, it turns dark. You can't go back, and the wall lowers, and suddenly it's in flames. This is where you can see that the lighting got really lazy. I think this wasn't done at all. This was not final. I don't think I would have made this final. You also can't leave anymore, by the way. So, yeah, it just kind of ends here. This is the last room. And I think you were meant to go into hell, but I believe I ran out of ideas at this point, because I just put whatever ideas I had into this WAD, and ending it with a burning building, by the way, also very similar to my house, was basically the finale in a way. I mean, you only got the red key. There's still the yellow and blue key missing. I have no idea when you were supposed to get those, but this is where it ends here. Also, burning buildings, not something exclusive to my house, not even exclusive to this WAD for me, because one of my first WADs I ever made was a game where you start out in a town amidst the zombie apocalypse, and you have to go into one of the houses, which was on fire, to get some items. I think you got a chainsaw in there, I believe. And the walls were also coated in these flames, and I made them half transparent so it actually looked like they were on fire, and I really liked that. I really like putting things on fire in my games. Again, the wall I made, also one of the rooms turns to fire. But this is where it ends. There's nothing here. I just stopped updating the WAD at this point, and I don't know what happened here, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't know what happened here. I don't know why this is lower. This is not the same map, by the way. You can't go back. Oh, Can you go back? Oh no, you can go back. So, oh, okay, so I guess just it lowers from the outsides, and these are textures that are on the walls in the first place. Because I know for a fact that next to this one, there's some enemies just in the dark. That's weird. There's another version of this gas station. I guess there was the previous version, the previous iteration, because it's obviously more basic. But I thought you got teleported to here. I guess I was wrong. But that's about it. I do, however, know that there is a... Jesus Christ. I do, however, know that there is one more place where I think I was just trying out a certain idea that I never did anything with. But I wanted to show you that anyway. Where is it? Is it here? It's hard to tell without the map. I'm going to have to turn it on in a second if I can't find it. Yes, here it is. So you come out through here. I don't know, this was a placeholder. Come out of the store, and this is very much Majora's Mask inspired. As you can see, it's a giant grassy plains, and there's a small hill with a tree at the top. And that's it. I think there was supposed to be a boss battle here. I just wanted to try out the idea of having a hill, which is sort of smooth, and seeing if I can make it look nice. Obviously not with this tree, but this was final. I didn't know how to add custom sprites or textures at all back then. But that's basically it. And there's nothing really to say about this mod, except that it was a nice insight into how I made games back in the day. And see how much I've improved, because if you played my recent mods, especially moving, because that's a whole different experience entirely. It's not even a shooter. Oh, teleporters. I was even nice enough to put those in. Then you know that I've really improved a lot. I mean, I know how to put textures and sprites into my games now. But it's nice to see where it all began, and this was when I already had some experience, but I wasn't quite there yet. I don't think I can ever finish this war. That's impossible, because it is from a time where I was completely different. I mean, back in 2017, I was still in university. I didn't even start working yet. And I just changed so much in between then. I can't just pick it up again and expect to make more of the same I already did so long ago. And so I'm just going to leave it at this. I do, however, want to point some other things out. First of all, the wedding ring. I talked about this earlier, but it's interesting how even MyHouse.WAD includes a sub-story about a wedding ring, or a wedding, or being married rather. And I think the point of this map was that you are depressed, as evidenced by the alcohol bottles, and you lost your husband, wife, spouse, whatever. Either because they died or because they divorced you, and you're just like in a bad spot mentally. And I don't know if I implied suicide with this. I don't think I did. I think it was just a depression, like a phase of depression. But eventually you go on this like weird dream-like adventure. Maybe you passed out from the alcohol, and in the end you emerge as a new person and you got over it. That was, I think, the point. I just find it interesting how the concept of being married and a tragedy surrounding that, as well as wedding rings, pops up in several Doom mods, and even popped up in mine all those years ago. And in a way, even in moving.wad. So I've always held on to these small ideas, even if I didn't remember them properly, they were always in the back of my mind. So it's nice that I was able to get that out there somehow. And I also wanted to point out that we saw this brick wall at the beginning, which needed a red skull. By the way, you only ever get a red key card. I think that was the point. You can't open this even with a red key card, because I don't think you were ever supposed to get out of this room. I'm not sure, because after this door, there's a different door, and after this door, there's a different door, and after this different door, there's just a room that leads nowhere. So I think the point was in the end that you would return maybe through this window, maybe through this bookshelf or something, into this room, and you could finally leave. I might have actually meant to make this really long WAD that you get all the keys, all 6 of them, but you can see how big this map is, and probably estimate that I could have never finished that. I mean, this was already massive for me back then. I've made bigger maps now, but even these days, doing something like this for just a gimmick WAD where I made whatever I wanted to isn't really all that realistic for me. Anyway, that was basically all I wanted to say, and I hope you enjoyed this small insight into a game that could have been, but never was, and never will be. But it was just nice to experience it. I think I'm going to put the link to the map in the description or in the comments, So you can try it for yourself, but there's literally nothing to see here. It's everything I've shown you already. I just wanted to give this sort of, I guess, developer commentary and walkthrough of this map that never was. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll see you in the next video, which will probably be about Wolfenstein, almost definitely, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to see more videos like these, then I have a couple of other WADs I never finished that I could take a look at too, but only if you want me to. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and goodbye!